One, love is in the air. Nope.
And welcome to the Love Power Show, where sometimes that love is tough. In the studio with me today, Brother Omar Baruti and Jeffrey Steele. And in the interest of time, we're going to get right to our subject matter. We're going to finish it up today, wrap it up on our series on where we're dealing with and discussing African-American single mothers. And here's the article. Dr. Boyce Watkins. We said we were going to talk about more solutions today. He says to think carefully about who you choose to sleep with. He also says that we live in a culture where the actions of love are driven more by impulse than logic. The tricky thing about lying down with someone is that people never think they're going to be the one to make a baby. But babies do come from sex. And it might be important to realize that every person you sleep with could be a parent to your child. If the person doesn't look like someone you want to go into business with for the next 18 years, you might be better off finding someone else. Sex is not just for pleasure, it also actually leads to procreation. And that brings to mind connections, relationships, marriage, contracts, and agreements. Brother Omar, I want to go to you once again. Relationships.
You know, we take relationships based on the Hollywood image of relationships. And those images are really not wholesome for us to even consider. Back in the days of slavery, just a few generations ago, it was illegal for two black people to get married. They got married anyway, without the justice of the peace. They just would jump a broom and declare themselves married. But there was nothing a white man would respect, because he could come into your slave quarters and take your wife anytime he wanted to and do whatever he wanted to do with her. And you couldn't do anything about it. He could also take you out of there and have you go be a stud on somebody else's plantation, or on the same plantation with some other female, and you didn't have any say about it. And a lot of that is carried over till today. We want to have family life, we want to have fatherhood properly, but we still have the vestiges of that slave training, that slave upbringing still with us today. And that's still affecting us even to this day.
Thank you, Brother Omar. Very well said, put eloquently. Jeffrey, what do you think about this statement here?
I definitely agree with him. You must be careful who you choose to lay down with, and because it is always that potential that that person may bear your child or become impregnated by you, and so you have to be careful. But that's one side of it, because he mentions you have to look at it as if you're going into business with that person. But even if that person doesn't become impregnated by you, to where, if you're just casually, sleeping around, you're still holding on to that person's energy, whether you realize it or not. A lot of times when you're out there like that, and you come back to yourself, you become confused, and you don't know why you have all these energies and feelings inside of yourself, and they're nothing but the carried over feelings from the person that you were just with. So that's another reason why it's important for you to be careful who you sleep with.
You added to the reasons. He says, read books on raising children before and after you have them. Education is the key to understanding life. But if you're afraid to crack open a book, you're going to regularly find yourself shooting from the hip in all of your most important decisions. Someone else's life is in your hands when you raise a child. And it's important to prepare for this solemn responsibility by educating yourself on how to do this job in the right way. There are a lot of screwed up adults who you may be amazed at how much screwed up adults who are the product of bad parenting. Sorry. If you don't want to read a book, at least do a Google search. Now, you You'd be amazed at how much great information is out there. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I caught a little bit of what you were saying, and well, what Dr. Watkins was saying is, he says that there are a lot of screwed up adults as a result to bad parenting. And you see, the way that this can be directly related to relationships that you have with the opposite sex counterpart is we mimic the behavior or the relationship that we have with the opposite sex parent. And so if your relationship with the opposite sex parent is not as strong as it could have been, then that is going to directly affect your relationships.
Period. Relationships.
And we have to be cognizant of the family life of the people that we're dating, because that is going to let you know possibly what you have to be aware of, what triggers their emotional responses from them,
okay.
Negative or positive. That's all important.
Number 3, and I read, study how to maintain relationships. If you didn't have a father in the home, you probably don't understand how to keep a father in your home or how to be a father in someone else's home. Reading books like Fatherhood, The Ultimate Challenge by Eton Thomas, or What Women Want Men to Know by Dr. Barbara DeAngelis can work wonders for helping you to negotiate complex relationships. So many of these problems that end up destroying our families and our chance to build wealth are easily solvable if we take the time to research how to manage our relationship. Brother Omar.
You know, as you look at the black family right now, it's very fragmented. And at one time we had an ever-increasing rate of out-of-wedlock pregnancies among our teenage population. As I looked at the Center for Disease Control website a few days ago, it shows that we've had a declining rate of teenage pregnancies since 2009, and except for 1 year, which was 2011, this is the lowest rate we've had since the 1940s. But what we're looking at, though, is we're looking at a world that's gone crazy with out-of-wedlock pregnancy, a world that's gone crazy with somewhere around 70% of Europeans across the world having children that are where the mother, the head is the head of the household, because relationships have been glamorized and Hollywoodized, so that it's all what you see on the TV. It's nothing what you should be doing as a wholesome and healthy family, because we've gotten away from those moral standards. And as long as we look at Hollywood's image, we will always be in a declining mode. We got to go back to what was relevant when we came over here from Africa. What was relevant when we were first put on the slave ship. Those things we've gotten away from, we got to go back to that value.
Okay, he spoke about your life being in someone else's hands. You're not controlling your own life. He says to avoid child support and divorce if you can. He says that he won't say much about that other than to say that having a child out of wedlock is one of the fastest ways in the world to end up broke. He says he can't tell you how many men he knows who live in shadows because they can't afford to pay child support. Child support courts are not working to keep your family together. Divorce can be equally devastating to your financial situation, and we see this, this is me saying this, we see this played out on TV and in the communities all the time. He says also avoid the wrong mates, holding on to the right ones. He says that it means that learning constructive ways to resolve relationship disputes so they don't tear your family apart. If you're not sure how to handle the struggle of being married, then don't do it. But once you make the decision to jump into something, do everything you can to have the endurance for the long, difficult ride. So, in managing a relationship, do we go back to how do I manage myself? Jeffrey?
Oh, absolutely. Because first, it's important, anybody who's considering to be in a healthy relationship it's important for them to realize that self-love is the best love first. And so I know lately, like last week, there was a lot of movies or interviews about Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston is known, well, my first memory of Whitney Houston was that song, The Greatest Love of All, and she talks about that love that you have to have inside of yourself. And so that's where it starts first. So once you are able to love yourself, you're able to understand what love is. And once you come to that realization, it's easier for you to love someone else unselfishly. And though that type of love is the kind of love that is enduring. However, if your love is not, if you have not understood the concept of love, then it's going to be difficult for you to practice love and have an enduring, healthy, loving relationship, because you don't understand that love is something that is supposed to endure. And so whenever a problem arises or issues or disagreements arise, those that love tend to invest their effort into solving those instead of running away. And that's what we see. We live in a society of instant gratification. So if something is not going right, we see our relationships breaking down and people being torn apart because they're not willing to put in the effort and the work to maintain that relationship.
Right, so you're talking about commitment and discipline. Now, here's something right here. Let's get to economics right quick. We're talking about financial economics foundation. It says avoid sleeping with someone who doesn't have a good economic future. Whether that man becomes a husband, a co-parent, or a baby daddy, a man with no money in the bank has a hard time giving your children the things they need. So we're talking about single African American women parents. If he can't take care of himself, he won't be able to take care of you. And it's just simple logic, right? Just make simple, good sense. If a man creates a child with a woman who isn't making investment in her own life, she'll be a drain on your finances and lean on you as a way to pay her bills long after the relationship is over. Children are the ties that bind us to other people. And if you're tethered to the wrong person, it can easily sink your economic ship. The best partner is one who increases your chances of building wealth, not reduces them. As Pastor Jamal Bryant said in his controversial remarks a few years ago, those hoes ain't loyal. Let's neutralize the controversial Pastor Bryant's remarks by making it clear that hoes can be both male and female. By adding quality people to your life and working your relationships of low quality, you are basically choosing good teammates in the game of life. Do you see him striking a balance in that comment, Omar?
You know, as you speak about finances, most people are looking for love in all the wrong places, as it seems to say. And most songs you hear about love deal with the physical anatomy and the bedroom. They don't deal with finances, they don't deal with any kind of social behavior, mental attitude, they don't deal with child rearing, they don't deal with any of those other issues that really go into a relationship. And as a result, you have a woman who has children, 5 children by 5 different baby daddies, because she never looked at the man in any other aspect except the bedroom. She didn't know where, some don't even know where they live. They don't know, all they know is a nickname. And my baby daddy's name is Big B. That's it. Where he worked, where he lived, don't know.
Big
Met him at a club, we went to bed the same night. I got pregnant, I ain't seen him since. I mean, when you go to look at Jerry Springer and these other folks, you got 4 or 5 different daddies coming out because she's not sure who the father is.
Right.
You got to figure it out.
Right.
If you got to figure out the man, then you have to figure out the baby. You'd already have that solved. You solve that on the front end. But as far as child support, many men run from child support. It's not just the financial aspect of child support. You should embrace. You should embrace the child. He needs that spiritual and psychological support. So he needs the finance. He can't live off of air. And then you won't have to worry about trying to pay child support and going and being incarcerated for not paying it. But you should give that child every kind of support you can think to get. That's your child. That's a reflection of you. You should support him until he gets able to support himself.
It has gotten so bad. Speaking of Jerry Springer, you have other shows like Maury Povich.
Yes.
and they bring out the DNA test.
Yes.
Because the argument is over who's the baby's daddy, like you said.
Yes.
So you see more and more of these shows popping up.
Yes. Idiocy.
And you just mentioned that there are some so-called white people involved in this madness as well. What is the world coming to? I see you have a burning desire, Jeffrey. Jump right in there.
It's just craziness. We have to understand, and I always have to bring this up. When we're dealing with forces that are trying to control us, then you're always going to have an aspect of confusion. And so that's what the TV and the media does for people who consume that on an unhealthy scale. They're always looking at images of unhealthy families, unhappy people, people who are insecure or trying to look like something that is not them. That's another form of self-hate and self-insecurity. A lot of our people have ideas of beauty that does not look like themselves. So you have to question whether or not they really know or love themselves because they're not accepting themselves for who they are. But you see, those are the things that they flash across the TV screen to us. And so if you're not careful about consuming this garbage, you're going to start believing it. And that's what's going on with the world. And I don't see how more people do not see this.
Okay.
This is what's controlling the minds, and this is also what's controlling our reference points and our perspectives and our perceptions when it comes to relationships. And that's what's tearing our relationships apart. We're taking our cue from the wrong things.
You said some critical words that time, and you spoke about insecurity and false concepts of beauty and references and frameworks and those sorts of words. But here's something else. Be careful about sleeping with someone who already has several parental commitments. A mother who is already spread out between 3 fathers of her children might not be the best mother for your child. At the very least, you risk standing idly by as your child is raised in a hotbed of problematic dysfunction. And for me, that's the key word, problematic dysfunction. But let me just finish this last part, and Omar, I want to go to you. A man with 4 babies, mamas, is already strained on child support commitments and may consider your child to be the bottom of the poverty list. Even worse, if you are dating someone who isn't taking care of the kids they already have, the odds say that this person is probably not going to take care of your child, of your kids either. Omar?
You know, that's a problem in many areas of Black America, but also in many areas of white America. We have got to come back to the basic foundation that built the African family. We have gotten completely away from it, trying to follow this white man into his corrupt European culture. If we just go back to what we did as African people, our children were raised from boys into manhood. There was a ritual they went through.
Right.
There was a process that had to take place for them to say they're men. Right now, if you get a baby, you feel like I'm a man. You still living at home with your mama sleeping on the couch and hope she'll pour you a bowl of cereal in the morning. How can you be a man? You can't even feed your own self.
Right.
Can't even clothe your own self. But you think you're a man because society has said, since you produced a baby, you must be that.
Right.
And then some of our teenagers are having intimacy with grown women. It's like statutory rape in reverse. And they feel proud because I'm 15 years old having sex with a 30-year-old, so I'm a man now.
Yeah.
All that is ignorance. Ignorance that's been brought on by integrating into a society that's already morally bankrupt.
And cultured, intelligent, advanced, civilized societies, like you said, they determine whether or not you're ready for manhood.
Yes.
And this has to do with the, what is it called? The rites of passage.
Rites of passage,
Yeah,
yes.
rites of passage. He's still talking about investment, still talking about economics. And many of us are running around here, and there's a thing called cause and effect. So a lot of times we are running after the cause and not the effect. Again, he says, think of every date as a potential mate and every mate as an investment. And I understand why he said that, because now you're talking about partnership in that relationship. your body, your love, and your future are three